Good day viewers, welcome to Class Online. Today we're going to be discussing English language, and we're going to be looking at a very important topic in English language. Like we said before now, Class Online is set out to make sure you have all the needed materials in learning any subject of your choice. And in English language today, at Class Online, we're going to show you the tips on answering comprehension questions. Now you might be surprised why we want to show you these tips in answering comprehension questions. The reason is because there's no exam, English exam, that is complete without comprehension passage. You must answer comprehension passage, be it WAEC, JAM or any other exam. So at Class Online, we want to show you the useful tips you can apply in order for you to pass comprehension questions. Now the topic once more is comprehension. It's all about understanding. You'll be given a particular passage, you read, you digest, you understand, and you answer the questions. And why it's important in the studies of English for students to look at comprehension is it helps you to build your IQ. You are able to comprehend and understand issues. So comprehension gives you that edge in understanding and comprehending issues. Now at Class Online, we're going to show you the tips on how to answer comprehension questions. Tips on how to answer comprehension questions. Now, first off, you read the questions. Now, you might be surprised that we didn't tell you to go straight to the passage. Why? We have our reasons why. When you read the questions before you read the passage, you make a mental picture of what the questions will be like in the passage, of what the answers to the questions will be like when you are reading the passage. So it is advisable you read the questions first. Then secondly, you read the passage. The first is read the questions. Second, you read the passage. Now what's the next thing you do? You read the questions again. Read the questions again. After you read the questions again, the next thing is to read the passage. But this time, read the passage, but this time try to find answers to the question. And then the fifth step is to answer the questions carefully. Answer the questions carefully. Now, we have shown you the 5 tips on how to answer comprehension questions. The first one is to read the questions. The second one is to read the passage. The third one is to read the questions again. The fourth one is to read the passage, but this time try to find answers to the questions. Fifth one, answer the questions carefully. Now, you might be surprised. Why will I read the questions first before I read the passage? Now when you read the questions, like I said earlier, before you read the passage, you create a mental picture of what the question is when you are reading the passage. Then when you are reading the passage, you already have a picture of what the question is in your mind. And then the third thing to do is to read the questions again. After you've read the questions, you read the passage, but this time you try to find answers to the questions in the passage. And then the last thing to do is to answer your questions carefully. Now, we are going to take a sample on how to apply this. We're going to take a sample on how to apply this. We're going to see how possible it is for us to apply these tips in answering comprehension questions. And to help us do that, we're going to look at a past question. Past question. We're going to pick a particular year, a random year, read a passage, and see how we can answer the question. Now, we've chosen the year 2002, JAM past question, use of English 2002. We're going to read one of the passages they have there, after which we'll answer the questions and apply the tips we have written on the board. Now, the first thing to do, like we said, is to read the questions. So viewers, you're going to listen carefully as I read the questions. The writer uses the expression fixing the meaning of the words we use to mean. The writer uses the expression fixing the meaning of the words we use to mean A. Using definitions to help people communicate their thoughts and argue logically. B. Getting even with the people who always ask for definitions. C. Repairing the damage done by inadequate definition during communication. D. Using definitions to help people build up their vocabulary. The second question. One of these summarizes the approaches to definition discussed in the passage. One of these summarizes the approaches to definition discussed in the passage. A. Mentioning the class of a word or object with a specific property. B. Indicating the class of a word and mentioning its general property with examples. C. Specifying clearly what distinguishes a particular word or object from its traditional groups. D. Giving general and specific features followed by examples of what the object or word includes. Number 3. The expression we may well be asked as used in the passage means A. We cannot escape being asked. B. The listener is always justified to ask questions. C. It is inconceivable that we will be asked. D. It is quite likely that we will be asked. 4. Which of the following statements can be deduced from the passage? A. Definitions and communication when enumeration is accurately handled. B. Accurate definition is invaluable to communication but difficult to achieve. C. Every speaker or writer has a method of defining words. D. They are both traditional and modern methods of defining words. Number 5. From the passage, which of these is a disadvantage of defining by enumerating? A. Enumeration always leaves doubt in the minds of the speaker. B. The words or objects listed may not all share similar characteristics. C. The property and examples enumerated may not be all inclusive. D. Many important members of the group may be left out of the enumeration. And these are the 5 questions to the passage. The second tip says we should read the passage. Now let's read the passage and have a clearer understanding. If our thought is to be clear and we are to succeed in communicating it to other people, we must have some method of fixing the meaning of the words we use. When we use a word whose meaning is not certain, we may be well asked to define it. There is a useful traditional device for doing this by indicating the class to which whatever is indicated by the term belongs, and also other particular property which distinguishes it from all other members of the same class. Thus, we may define a whale as a marine animal that spouts. Marine animal in this definition indicates the general class to which the whale belongs, and spouts indicates the particular property that distinguishes whales from other such marine animals as fishes, seals, jellyfish, and lobsters. In the same way, we can define an even number as a finite integer divisible by 2, or a democracy as a system of government in which the people themselves rule. There are other ways, of course, of indicating the meaning of words. We may, for example, find it hard to make a suitable definition of the word animal. So we may say that an animal is such a thing as rabbit, dog, fish, or goat. Similarly, we may say that religion is such a system as Christianity, Islam, Judaism, and Buddhism. This way of indicating the meaning of a term by enumerating examples of what it includes is obviously of limited usefulness. If we indicated our use of the word animal as above, our hearers might, for example, be doubtful whether a sea anemone or a slug was to be included in the class of animals. It is, however, a useful way of supplementing a definition if the definition itself is definite without being easily understandable. Failure of an attempt at definition to serve its purpose may result from giving as distinguishing mark one which either does not belong to all the things the definition is intended to include, or does belong to some members of the same general class which the definition is extended to include. Now that is the passage. Now the third option says, read the questions again. We have read the passage. Now let's read the questions again. The writer uses the expression fixing the meaning of the words we use to mean A. Using definitions to help people communicate their thoughts and argue logically. B. Getting even with the people who always ask for definitions. C. Repairing the damage done by inadequate definition during communication. D. Using definition to help people build up their vocabulary. Number 2. One of these summarizes the approaches to definition discussed in the passage. A. Mentoring the class of a word or object with its specific property. B. Indicating the class of a word and mentioning its general property with examples. C. Specifying clearly what distinguishes a particular word or object from its traditional groups. D. Giving general and specific features followed by examples of what the object or word includes. Number 3. The expression "we may well be asked" as used in the passage means A. We cannot escape being asked. B. The listener is always justified to ask questions. C. It is inconceivable that we will be asked. D. It is quite likely that we will be asked. Number 4. Which of the following statements can be deduced from the passage? Definitions aid communication when enumeration is accurately handled. Accurate definition is invaluable to communication but difficult to achieve. Every speaker or writer has a method of defining words. And lastly, there are both traditional and modern methods of defining words. Number 5. From the passage, which of these is a disadvantage of defining by enumerating? A. Enumeration always leaves doubt in the mind of the speaker. B. The words or object listed may not all share similar characteristics. C. The property and examples enumerated may not be all inclusive. D. Many important members of the group may be left out in the enumeration. Now we've done the third step. We read the questions again. Now let's look at the fourth step. Read the passage, but this time try to find answers to the question. Now, like we said during our explanation, you might see it as time-consuming, viewers, but why it is necessary is for you to have a grounded knowledge of what the passage is all about. You have to follow the steps. So we're going back to the passage before we answer the questions carefully. Now, if our thought is to be clear and we are to succeed in communicating it to other people, we must have some method of fixing the meaning of the words we use. When we use a word whose meaning is not certain, we may be well asked to define it. There is a useful traditional device for doing this by indicating the class to which whatever is indicated by the term belongs, and also other particular property which distinguishes it from all other members of the same class. Thus, we may define a whale as a marine animal that sports. Marine animal in this definition indicates the general class to which the whale belongs, and sports indicates the particular property that distinguishes whales from other such marine animals as fishes, seals, jellyfish, and lobsters. In the same way, we can define an even number as a finite integer divisible by 2, or a democracy as a system of government in which the people themselves rule. There are other ways in which we can define things. We may, for example, find it hard to make a suitable definition of the word animal. So we say that an animal is such a thing as a rabbit, dog, fish, or a goat. Similarly, we may say that religion is such a system as Christianity, Islam, Judaism, and Buddhism. This is a way of indicating the meaning of a term by enumerating examples of what it includes is obviously of limited usefulness. If we indicated our use of the word animal as above, our hearers might, for example, be doubtful whether a sea animal or a slug was to be included in the class of animals. It is, however, a useful way of supplementing a definition if the definition itself is definite without being easily understandable. Failure of an attempt at definition to serve its purpose may result from giving as distinguishing mark one which either does not belong to all the things the definition is intended to include or does belong to some members of the same general class which the definition is intended to exclude. Now that is the passage again. Answer the questions carefully is the last item we have on our tips on how to answer comprehension questions. So viewers, let's see if we can do this. The first question says, the writer uses the expression fixing the meaning of the words we used to mean. Now, from the passage, the first sentence says, if our thought is to be clear and we are to succeed in communicating it to other people, we must have some method of fixing the meaning of the words we use. The option says, A, using the definitions to help people communicate their thoughts and argue logically. B, getting even with the people who always ask for definitions. C, repairing the damage done by inadequate definition during communication. D, using definition to help people build up their vocabulary. So the writer uses the expression fixing the meaning of the word we use to mean that A, using definition to help people communicate their thoughts and argue logically. That's the answer to the question. And it's seen from the first sentence in the passage. Now the second question says, one of these summarizes the approaches to definition discussed in the passage. A, mentioning the class of a word or object with its specific property. B, indicating the class of the word and mentioning its general property with examples. C, specifying clearly what distinguishes a particular word or object from its traditional groups. D, giving general and specific features followed by examples of what the object or word includes. Now we saw from the passage that there are some traditional means of defining a word, and that is by naming the class of a word, of an object that the word belongs to. And that gives us to option A that says mentioning the class of a word or object with its specific property. Now the third question says the expression we may well be asked as used in the passage means that A, we cannot escape being asked. B, the listener is always justified to ask questions. C, it is inconceivable that we will be asked. D, it is quite likely that we will be asked. So from the expression we may well be asked as used in the passage, the meaning falls to D that says it is quite likely that we will be asked. Now number 4 says, which of the following statements can be deduced from the passage? A, definitions aid communication when enumeration is accurately handled. B, accurate definition is invaluable to communication but difficult to achieve. C, every speaker or writer has a method of defining words. D, they are both traditional and modern methods of defining words. Now from the passage, we've seen that when a word is defined, we can be able to get the meaning of the word and we can also understand it clearly. So definition aids communication when enumeration is accurately handled. If you look at the second passage, in the second paragraph in the passage, we see that there are other ways, of course, of indicating the meaning of the words. And we may, for example, find it hard to make a suitable definition of the word animal. So we say that an animal is such a thing as a rabbit, dog, fish, or goat. So from getting the definition of the word, it can be able to aid us to communicate when we enumerate all the classes of words that belong to that word. Now, the last question says, from the passage, which of these is a disadvantage of defining by enumerating? A, enumeration always leaves doubt in the minds of the speaker. B, the words already listed may not all share same characteristics. C, the property and examples enumerated may not be all inclusive. D, many important members of the group may be left out of the enumeration. The answer is B, the words or object listed may not all share similar characteristics. Now we're able to achieve all these feats if we follow these 5 steps we've listed on the board. And like we said earlier, At Class Online, it is our goal to see that students out there are able to get not shortcuts but tips on how to answer exam questions carefully. And we said earlier when we were starting the class that there is no English exam without comprehension passages. You must be able to comprehend, you must be able to understand before you answer these questions. And right here are the tips to help you understand these questions and answer them carefully. And we talked about time management. You might write an exam with 4-5 comprehension passages, but if you manage your time carefully, you can be able to follow these steps. And how can you manage your time carefully? When you are not too fast and you are not too slow, you have a moderate timing for your time. You can as well read the passage, read the questions, go over it again, and answer your questions carefully. So these are the tips on how to answer comprehension questions. And also we've used a section from the past question to show you how to achieve this. Thank you very much for watching.